Hey everybody, Matthew here from MiniWarGaming, and I want to do a follow-up video to the video I put up yesterday about the changes to the MiniWarGaming Vault and needing your help. If you haven't watched that video yet, you should probably go back and watch it right now. It talks about some drastic issues that we are facing financially and what we are asking for help for, and the plans that we have for the future of MiniWarGaming to try to fix things as well. So if you haven't watched that yet, go back and watch it. I'll make sure there's a link in the description below of the first video. So I'm just going to jump right past that. Thank you, then a holy cow thank you to the response to the video that we put up. Now, of course, there's always going to be some negativity in there, people saying why they don't like us, and not because they want us to improve, but just because they want to say they don't like us. But overall, the response was overwhelmingly positive. People making suggestions on what to do, giving their encouragement, and really going and signing up to the Vault. There's been a lot of people. We've had hundreds of people go and sign up to the MiniWarGaming Vault just over the past 24 hours, and that is huge. Obviously, we're not done yet. We could still use a lot more people, and we're going to be making changes too, and we're going to be talking about that. This video, basically, I want to reply to the comments that were posted yesterday. Now, there were over 1,000 comments. In my email inbox alone, there are dozens of emails. In the support inbox, there are dozens of emails. In our Facebook messages, there are dozens of Facebook messages. There's just comments everywhere, hundreds of comments, thousands, over 1,000 comments on YouTube. Now, the nice thing about comments, though, is that if you start reading through them, you start to see a pattern where you don't actually have 1,000 unique comments. You can actually group them together into big groups. So that's what I'm going to do here, basically group them together and say, okay, a lot of people were asking about this. A lot of people were asking about this. A lot of people suggested this. And I want to go over each of those one by one. But I can't tell you thank you enough for basically overall people wanting us to survive, wanting us to thrive, and being willing to make a small sacrifice of joining the Vault. Or we had a lot of people go over to shop.miniwargaming.com and buy a ton of our dice and some of our magnets and some of our gaming accessories as well. And that definitely supports us as well. So all of that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It is wonderful. It's a wonderful feeling. I have to admit, now that it's the day after, my feelings have gone from this adrenaline and like, okay, let's do this, to like now I have a huge task ahead of me. We have an enormous task here at MiniWarGaming because this is our chance to make some serious changes to improve the quality of our content so that you guys get what you're paying for, because we don't want to have to rely on people being like, you know what, I'll buy a Vault membership because I want to support them. We want you to buy a Vault membership because you love the content. We want you to continue being a customer because you want the product. And so I want to talk about that as well here. First and foremost, though, I kicked myself the moment I saw the first few comments come in on the video yesterday. I was like, shoot, I forgot to talk about one very important thing. And that was the obvious, why are you staying with Vimeo if they all of a sudden jack up the prices? And some people went as far, lots of people were like, that is awful of Vimeo. They are awful. That's predatory business practices. That is just, a company should not be allowed to do that. So I'm going to defend Vimeo a little bit here and talk about how I did do a lot of research. And I was going to say that in yesterday's video, but with the huge list of things I wanted to talk about, I just forgot. And so it became a big part of the conversation yesterday. Lots of the emails I got were, did you try this service? Did you try this service? So first off, Vimeo was not mean in doing this. We knew that for these past years that the amount that we were paying for Vimeo was so insignificantly low compared to the amount of bandwidth that we were using. And I remember actually when we used to pay more for Vimeo and they restructured their plans so that we actually started paying less for Vimeo. And Dave and I both looked at this and we combed through the terms and conditions. We made sure we were following all of their rules, and we did. We went to Vimeo because it was the one place where you could host your videos, make them private, and put them behind your own paywall, and it wasn't against their terms. A lot of people suggested, just post your stuff on YouTube, make it unlisted. It's actually against YouTube's terms of services to put any of the videos behind a paywall. And they used to have a premium subscription service, and that's mainly gone. They got rid of a lot of that. But yeah, you can't just post on YouTube. But Vimeo was basically charging us next to nothing. And we knew that eventually something was going to change. What we were worried about was that one day Vimeo would be like, hey guys, you use too much bandwidth, we're shutting you down. And having seen that for the past few years, I've continually looked into other alternatives to using Vimeo. We've looked at self-hosting. We've looked at hosting through Amazon Cloud. We've looked at other companies like Bright Cove and all sorts of other video hosting services, but they're always hugely expensive, ridiculously expensive, given the amount of views and bandwidth that we use in our vault. Because despite the fact that our budget is tight, we have a lot of vault members. We have a lot of people supporting us. It's just that over the years, our expenses keep going up and up and up. And once again, not because of this building, but just because actually mainly it's wages that we've wanted to expand. We never wanted it to be just me and Dave making videos. We wanted it to be a team of content producers with a support staff behind. And of course, that team changes over time, and we'll talk a bit about that too. But the idea was to make MiniWarGaming more than just about Dave and me, to make it about something bigger. But in order to do that, you need a support staff, and wages are incredibly expensive. A lot of these really good YouTube channels that you see out there making miniature wargaming videos, this is something on the side, and they're making money somewhere else, and so they can live off of a small amount of YouTube advertising or the Patreon users or whatever they sell in their merchandise store, and that's great, and they're happy to get that. And of course, they want to grow, they'd love to do it full time, but a lot of them are doing it on the side. Now, I'm not sure about all of them, but I know a lot of them are. And whereas this is our full-time job. I have no side income. This is the income. So when you actually take 10 people full-time, plus we have cleaners, we have a bookkeeper, we have all these different support things that are outside of that, it's quite a large expense. So going back to Vimeo, Vimeo approaching us, they emailed us. They were actually incredibly courteous. They said, we've been trying to clean this up. There's a few accounts like yours. And they even said, we know that this is a frustrating conversation to have, but and we knew we're costing them way more than they're charging us. So their choice, they could have just said, see you later, guys. We're going to shut down your account, and that's going to save us a ton of money because you're using so much bandwidth. So I'm glad that they actually came to us, and I replied saying, so what's your proposal? And they said, well, here's the quote. And I went back and forth, and we negotiated, and we found actually a really good rate. But while I was negotiating with them, I looked into all of these other services again. I had already done it over the past few years, but I'm like, well, let's just really compare now that we have a solid price. I have all the stats that I need. And all the other options were really, really expensive. And I know you'll probably say, yeah, but what about? But what about? Trust me, I've looked into a lot of different things. It's possible there's some fringe thing out there that could do it, but I doubt it. Given the amount of bandwidth that we use tens of terabytes of bandwidth every single month. It's a lot of bandwidth. I think that costs a lot. And especially, and one thing I want to address is self-hosting, like we have servers here. Anybody who is somebody who knows about tech stuff, anybody who understands servers knows that that's a horrible idea. First off, Welland doesn't have the internet infrastructure to be able to support that much bandwidth. Second off, we would need almost a full-time tech person, and that would cost more than what Vimeo is charging us. So I want to defend Vimeo. They have offered us a very competitive rate for our bandwidth and for the storage of our videos. So don't hate on Vimeo. Now I know some people don't like the Vimeo player, and I get that. It's not perfect. It's not like the YouTube player, which works everywhere. But you have to remember, they're not YouTube. They don't have the same budget and support staff to constantly make this player work on the huge number of different kinds of devices that you have to make it work on. You've got all the different kinds of phones and tablets and computers. You got PC versus Mac. You got a lot of different browsers and versions of operating systems. It's a big job, and I think Vimeo does an excellent job. Of course, it's like I said, if you're used to using YouTube, the player is not as good as YouTube's when it comes to all the little features, but it does a really good job of what it needs to do. And if we went to self-hosting and had our own player, you'd probably see that would be a lot worse, to be honest, because that would leave it on us to figure all of that out, and that is way beyond us, this small little business. Some other suggestions were like, well, why not delete a bunch of your old videos because they're just costing you bandwidth and nobody really cares about them. That shows that people don't understand the word bandwidth sometimes, and that's fine. A lot of people don't understand the technical side of things. Bandwidth is when people view your videos. So if a video is not being viewed, then it's not using bandwidth. Now, we are going to go back and delete a lot of the old videos because nobody watches things from 2 editions ago, and that costs storage. But when you look at the entire cost of what Vimeo is charging us, storage is about 20% of that cost. So we can probably cut that down a little bit, maybe cut down about 25% of the storage cost, but it's not going to be this huge amount overall. Another interesting comment that I saw a few times was, If they increased your cost by 1,700%, which is 18 times, well, how on earth are you going to get 1,700% more customers? And this one kind of, I was like, okay, so this is a pretty basic thing. That's only one of our costs. So if this was all of our costs, if I had a chart right here and I said this is all of our costs, you got your rent, you got your utilities, models and terrain, the big chunk of our cost, like 80%, I would say, is wages. That's the 10 full-time people that we have, plus our support staff of cleaners and bookkeepers and that kind of stuff. That is the big chunk. Video hosting, what happens is our revenue's been here and our expenses have been increasing because the expenses just keep going up. Regardless of what we do, there's going to be an increase in expenses. It's just inflation. And some people have suggested we'll raise the price of your Vault membership. We do that periodically because we have to keep up with inflation. So I think we just did it. Can't remember exactly when, but it's within the past year. So I don't want to do it right now. I don't want to get everybody in and be like, okay, now we're raising the prices. But there will be periodic price rises because inflation just kind of dictates that if you don't, then you're slowly charging less and less and less for the same thing. But the expenses have gone up. So you have to realize that while the revenue is nice and high, the expenses are nice and high. And so something like now Vimeo charging more pushes the expenses this huge amount above. Even though zero is all the way down here, this went up by 1,700%, not all of this. So we don't need 1,700% more customers, 18 times the amount of customers. That's impossible. There's no way we could grow that much. It would take, I don't even know if that's even possible, period, let alone within the next year or two to grow 18 times like that. When we were early in our business, we were having years where we grew 60% and 80% and 50%, and that was fantastic. In fact, 1,700% obviously is just ridiculous and would never happen. So no, we don't need 18 times as many customers in order for this to work. We just needed enough to kind of cover these costs. And now some people are like, well, isn't this just a short-term strategy? Absolutely, you are right. If there's a problem where our revenues are not increasing and our expenses are, then just jumping up our revenues a little bit is just going to eventually bring us to the same problem. And I totally agree with that, which is why this is not our long-term strategy. What we are asking for is your help in the short term, meaning try out the Vault right now because you want to support us, and we are going to do everything in our power over the next 6 to 12 months to transform it into something that you'll want to continue to pay for, not because you want to support us, but because you love the content and you don't want your life to be without it. That's what we want. In the end, that's the business I want to create. I love the fact that there are so many viewers who just want to support us. That is fantastic. However, you can't build a business out of that. That's always going to be a small percentage of your customers. And so while they are a fundamental part of our business, that's not going to allow us to grow. We need to create a product that you guys want. And I've seen a lot of criticisms on why certain people don't want these products. And I even agree with a lot of them. And we are going to do everything in our power to make changes to increase the quality of the product and to bring you new original shows and all sorts of entertaining stuff that will allow us to stand out in the market and make you want to have a MiniWarGaming Vault membership. We even have some other ideas that I can't talk about yet that involves working with others to create something that would be very valuable to you. That's all I'm going to say right now. So yeah, this is a short-term strategy. We're trying to basically get enough to get us through the next little while we make these changes. So basically this has kicked us in the butt. This has been like a MiniWarGaming, bam, kick in the butt. You need to think about it. It's been a slow increase in expenses without revenue going up. And we've been like, okay, we'll make a little change here. Okay, that helped. We'll make a little change here. Okay, that helped. We got to get rid of 1 or 2 employees to bring down costs. Okay, that helped. But in the end, it's like none of these things are the long-term strategy. And eventually, and that's why it's kind of a blessing in disguise that Vimeo all of a sudden said, here's an extra expense. That's a big one. And it forces us to really reevaluate. And those things have always been a big boon for MiniWarGaming. I know in Games Workshop at the time, it said that Canadian retailers could no longer sell online. That forced us to make some very big changes. There's been a few things like that that just force us to reevaluate and to adapt or die. Because in the end, that's what happens to a lot of businesses. They need to adapt to the changing market or die. Some people ask, like, well, why not just switch to Patreon and make everything free? All I can say is I'm not going to disclose like exact numbers of how much money we make in the MiniWarGaming Vault or how many Vault members we have. But what I will tell you is that when I look at Patreon, I look at the largest Patreon users out there, as far as I can remember in the past few months, and we make more money in the Vault than they do. I'm not talking about Patreon users in the miniature wargaming. I'm talking about period. So you've got these Patreon users who have millions of views, millions of subscribers, and they only make a certain amount. And we make more with the Vault than that. It's because Patreon, it's a pay to support kind of thing. I know that you can have exclusive content behind it, but the basic feeling of Patreon is, hey, I like you, I want you to survive, here's a few dollars a month. And that's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. It's allowed a lot of smaller creators, that and like Twitch subscriptions, these things have allowed a lot of smaller creators to be able to make a living off of what they do. But it's just that they remain a smaller creator with just them, maybe one other person, maybe two other people. But for the most part, they're a business, but they're just usually one or two people. Whereas we want to be a larger business. I say larger, 10 people is hardly huge, but like we want it to be something more than just one or two of us making videos in a studio or two. We want it to be something bigger than that. So Patreon's just not the answer to that. Now, having said that, a lot of people, this is an interesting suggestion. A lot of people have commented saying, well, I'm already a Vault member. I would like to, if you had a Patreon, then I'd also throw a few extra dollars a month at that too, just to support you. Or people are like, I don't want to become a Vault member, but if you had a Patreon, then I would throw a few dollars at that to support you, maybe like in a one-time kind of thing, and just to kind of help you along. And that's really interesting. I hesitate to do that because, like I said, I want to create a product that you want to buy. But there's been a lot of comments, and I don't just mean like 2 or 3. Like I've seen dozens of comments saying, well, why don't you just create a Patreon, like not to replace the Vault, but in addition to it, just so we could throw a few extra dollars at your way and help you out through this transition. So I have a very honest question to ask you, sorry, not an honest question, a question I want you to be honest with your response. If we were to do that, if we were to say, well, we'll make a MiniWarGaming Patreon, maybe we'll have some exclusive content in there that would also be in the Vault, maybe some behind the scenes or something, but we wouldn't be able to put a lot of exclusive content in there because we have to focus on making the content for the Vault. Then would you want to support that way, and whether you are a Vault member or not a Vault member? So let me know in the comments below, and that would be really useful. But for me, if you want to support extra, then the easiest way is to go to our merch store, shop.miniwargaming.com, and buy some dice or some magnets, because then you get something, and we make some money off of that, which then goes towards our video production budget and keeping us in business and all of that too. So let me know. Let me know your thoughts of that right there, because I thought it was curious that people were actually willing to do that. I'm just curious if there's enough people willing to do that to make it worth putting that out there, because I don't want people to think, oh, now they're just turning into a charity, and now they're just, because people are like, well, you're begging for money. I'm like, well, you call it what you want to call it. We're basically asking people who like us to support us through this transition as we try to make the changes necessary to adapt our business to the ever-changing market and hopefully survive the changes, because there's a lot of market disruption throughout the past decade. Like YouTube it didn't even exist 15 years ago, if I remember correctly, exactly when it came out. But that's not a long time ago. Our business built up in this disruptive period. And so there's going to continue to be these disruptions to the marketplace. And disruption is not a bad thing. It's just huge changes to technology and the way people view things. I don't just mean content, but just like how they perceive things changes. When we had the Vault, when it first started, people thought we were nuts to try to charge a monthly subscription fee for content. People actually got really angry at us. Some people still do, but for the most part, now people understand, well, that's just a normal thing. And so we started doing that, and now everybody can do that, and it's a normal thing, and you don't get criticized if you try to charge for content, at least not too much. There'll always be some critics down there. So so basically, throughout all of this, there's the links if you want to support us. If you're still on the fence, you can go to miniwargaming.com/giveaway/vault. And if you go through that link, you can try out the Vault for free for 7 days. And you also get access to a bunch of campaigns for free that are only behind the Vault normally. But even if you cancel your membership, you get to keep those ones. So all the details are there. So you can go and check that out. Or if you want to support us, you can go to shop.miniwargaming.com as well. and purchase whatever it is that you find interesting in there: dice, gaming aids, magnets for your miniatures, whatever you happen to find. The last thing I want to address is reasons why people think that maybe our battle reports have or need improvement, areas that we need improvement. There's two major things that I saw come up. The first one was, well, I stopped looking at MiniWarGaming when you got rid of fill in the blank. And this happens anytime there's employee turnover, whether somebody quits or we have to terminate somebody's employment. There's always people who are like, well, that was the only reason I watched MiniWarGaming. And I can appreciate that. There's certain personalities that'll click better with certain people, and you might like somebody better than other content producers. That's always going to be the case, and I totally get that. And if now that was the only person you ever cared to watch and they're gone, then yeah, why would you be interested in MiniWarGaming anymore? But I'm going to say this: turnover is normal. Nobody is going to work for MiniWarGaming forever. Heck, one day I won't work for MiniWarGaming. I hope that the business will survive that. I hope that when I sell the business or I decide to retire one day, because I'm only going to get grayer, that yeah, there'll be people who'll be like, oh, I miss Matthew, and I hope that people say that because that means that they liked me. But at the same time, I hope the business continues, and you know, there's just everything happens like that with shows. Look at Game of Thrones, right? You know, there's constant change in the characters, and some people are like, oh, I don't like this anymore because of that. Or lots of places have changes to the actors, changes to the producers that you see, and sometimes people leave when that happens. So I can appreciate that, but you have to understand that's always going to be a part of MiniWarGaming. Like these people are going to, you got like Steve, Vito, and Luca right now. I can't imagine that in 40 years from now, Steve, Vito, and Luca are still working here. Not because of any other reason than, well, hopefully they'll have retired by then, but it's quite possible that they'll have moved on to something else. That who knows? Who knows what the future holds? But if it means there is going to be changes over time. You're going to get different content producers through here. We want content producers to stay as long as possible. It's just good for the business to do that. But we also understand that that's not always possible, either because they have reasons that they need to leave, or we have reasons that we need them to leave. Also, another thing that people talked about is one of the reasons that they have a hard time watching our battle reports is because of the guests that we have in, that they're such a wild card. Some of them are great, some of them are less interesting. All I'm going to say to that is we love our guests. The guests that come in and film with us, we are so appreciative to them. They come from all over the world, like literally all over the world. We get people, we've got a map that we're building that's just who's come here in this location, and it's already filling up in all the different parts of the world. But if we actually had that from the beginning, you would see the most remote areas of the world. You've got people that have come here to do battle reports, and that is so cool. But I do get that they're good because you don't know them, you have no prior relationship with them, that you're going to get a varying level of quality. They're going to come in. Some of them are going to have fantastically painted armies. Some will have okay painted armies. Some of them are going to know the rules really well. Some of them don't play very often and they just want to come in and have some fun games. Some of them are going to be super competitive. Some of them are going to be super laid back. They're not necessarily going to click with you. Whereas people have said, well, in other channels, I watch the same 2 guys or the same 4 guys, so I get to know them. And having said that, we're not going to stop having guest battle reports, but we are going to be making some changes in the future to bring you more staff on staff or content producer on content producer content, because that has been a big request. And I think that needs to be addressed and become a regular thing, and not just the narrative campaigns, but regular battle reports. And also a lot of the new shows that we are now coming up with and will soon be announcing. And by soon, I mean in the next weeks, maybe even next few months. So we have heard that complaint, and just understand that we're not going to stop having guests in. We love having them in. We're going to keep making battle reports with them, but we are going to also address that issue that you guys want to see more of us fighting us, because then you get to, you know us, you know what to expect with us if you are a regular viewer of MiniWarGaming. I think I have addressed everything I wanted to address. Of course, I expect there to be more comments on this video that maybe we'll be asking other questions. And if you have any suggestions for what we can do, shows that you'd love to see. I know one thing I should point out as well. A lot of people are asking, well, maybe you need to address having more competitive content. And I don't think that that's a bad idea. It's just more that none of us here are really equipped for that. We are all a bunch of casual gamers who love to switch between armies, who love to switch between games. And some of the guys attend the odd tournament, but like local tournaments. They're not going to the huge grand tournaments with the top players, because that's just not our style. Our style is laid back, have fun, chill with your friends, play narrative scenarios and narrative campaigns, laugh a lot, yell a lot, all that kind of stuff. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't have competitive stuff too, but it's just anytime we've tried to do that in the past, they just never get as many views, first off. And second, it's not easy for us to just be consistent with that, because we're constantly trying out new things, we're constantly shifting between things, and because most of the guys here aren't interested in tournaments and super competitive play. While we're all competitive, we all like to win the game, we don't invest tons of time searching on the internet for the best combinations and the best lists. We're just like, hey, this looks like a fun thing to try out, let's try this. I'll explore an army. Like if you watch my battle reports, you'll see that I explore an army for a few games, and then I get bored of it, and I want to explore another army. I played, for the Age of Sigmar stuff, I played Orc War Clans when they came out with the new book. I played them for like 6 or 8 games, and I'm like, okay. Then the Ogre Maw Tribes came out. I'm like, okay, I get to play those. And I've played like 6 or 7 games of them, and now I'm moving on. I'll probably try Cities of Sigmar next or something. And I know you'll have all sorts of suggestions of what you want me to play, but really it's just whatever draws my attention. I'm just like, ooh, I want to play this now. Ooh, I want to play this now. Ooh, I want to play this now. I get bored very easily if I play the same army for too long, which means that I'll never become an expert on any of the armies, because I'm constantly switching between them. So trying to say, yeah, this is how you play them competitively. The true competitive players will stick to a list, and they'll hone that list over and over and over again and play it against a lot of different opponents to see how it works. Because the same list will have a hard time against different types of armies, different types of opponents. And that's just not what we do. So as much as I know some of you want to see that, I'm sorry to say that it's not, at least in the near future, going to become a core part of MiniWarGaming. There are other channels that do that. I suggest that you go and watch them, because I know that they can be better at the competitive side of things. That's just not what we're interested in. And I think, I can't say this for certain, that the majority of the market is more interested in the casual stuff than competitive stuff. And I've done a lot of research on that, and I'm pretty sure that's the case. So I just wanted to kind of point that out, because I saw a few comments saying that they want that. And I get it. I totally get it, why you'd want that. And maybe one day we'll be able to expand in such a way that we'll introduce 2 or 3 employees who do love going to tournaments on a regular basis, and they focus on the tournament stuff and, you know, tactic videos and how to make competitive lists and analyzing like the deep analysis of the codexes and stuff like that. And until then, you've got us playing casually, having fun, exploring what we like and what we don't like. So I've rambled on a pretty long time with this, as you're probably accustomed if you watch any of my videos. But I just want to end on the note of a big thank you again. And we're so grateful for the support that we've seen. If you want to support us, as much as we've had hundreds of people sign up, we could use a lot more to get through this next little period. So go to miniwargaming.com/giveaway/vault to try out the MiniWarGaming Vault for free. Or you can go to shop.miniwargaming.com and purchase anything there, and we'll make some money off of that, which we'll put back into the business as well. And if you can't do either of those, or in addition to both of those, sharing this video, sharing the original video is even better, because this one's a follow-up video to it. But going back and sharing that, commenting here, anything you can do to support it would be awesome. Thank you so much. This is fantastic. You guys are fantastic, and we love what we do, and we hope that we get to continue to do this for many, many, many more years to come. Happy wargaming.